Look at me.
Smile is a 2022 horror movie about a Dr. Rose Cotter, who is a psychologist, works at an emergency psychiatric hospital in New Jersey, and witnesses one of her patients commit suicide. That kind of kicks off what is essentially a curse of sorts, leading her to trying to figure out what's causing this before she ends up at the same fate. So, first of all, whenever I hear there's a big studio horror movie, I always kind of give it a bit of a side eye because, sort of traditionally speaking, big studio horror movies I'm not a gigantic fan of. And it's not anything specific other than more of just a historical thing. So I was kind of a little leery going into this movie, but I have to say, this movie really doesn't feel like a big studio horror movie. A couple of things that I really liked about this movie is, one, it's got some great atmosphere. It took its time. Generally speaking, a lot of big studio stuff is all very short. It creates a real good sense of tension and atmosphere. And there's some genuinely great, creepy moments with this movie. The acting is fantastic, at least from the lead actress, Sosie Bacon, which I haven't really seen much of her. I'm not really sure. Maybe I've seen some other stuff that she's been in, but as far as I know, this is the first time I've really seen her, and she really does a fantastic job. I was very impressed with her. The rest of the cast is okay, but she really does a phenomenal job of selling sort of the trauma of her character. The movie itself is about trauma, basically. In terms of themes, that's a good theme to kind of hang your horror movie on, and they do a really good job of utilizing that and have everything else kind of circle its way around it, where it's trauma and unresolved guilt. Couple of things I had a problem with this movie. One, I felt like the movie sort of ran out of ideas at one point. It moves along really well, but once it kind of gets to that third act, it builds up a nice head of steam, and I just felt like either it didn't know how it wanted to resolve it, or it just kind of started stumbling, and it does cross the finish line and doesn't quite lose all of its goodwill, but it does kind of knock it down a little bit because it feels like the movie's premise was its selling point, and then once you have to sort of reveal all the cards on the table, everything, the end kind of falls apart slightly. It ends up kind of choosing the easiest, most default, typical outcome as opposed to coming up with something clever. Also, the Rose character, once again, played fantastically. However, I wish her character had a bit more of an arc to it. In the very beginning, she already kind of comes off as I know she has some unresolved trauma, but she already kind of comes off as a bit damaged. And, that's fine, but it means her character doesn't have a ton to go to get into sort of the frenetic, desperate world. But it starts out, she's seemingly already damaged to the point where, I wonder how is it she seems like she has a fairly stable life around her. She's got a fiance, she's got a good job, she's got people that care about her, and yet she really seems incapable of doing it, of really dealing with life. And even this is before she even kind of gets this kind of tough patient that kicks this whole story off. And so I felt like it would have been nicer to have her a bit more under control in the beginning. I know we're dealing with trauma, but it would have been nicer to have her a bit more in control in the beginning, just so that to really see her sort of degradation and deterioration mentally, because it kind of goes from 0 to 60, from she's beginning of the movie to then all of a sudden she is crazy, and then that kind of goes through the whole film, and so that's too bad. And then really finally, I think there's just too many jump scares. They really lay on the jump scares pretty thick, and I'm not a fan of jump scares. Maybe you are, but I just don't care for them, and it really takes away some of the movie for me. And it's a shame because they have some, like I said, genuinely creepy moments in this movie, and it could have been so much better if you kind of got rid of those jump scares and utilized some more genuine creepiness. But I did enjoy it. I think it's a well-made movie. I would recommend it. I'd give it a B+.